Last week, unfortunately, we were not able to have Zamina because of network issues. Technology can always can sometimes let you down. So Zamina, today I'm not going to take much of your time. Right away. You're welcome. You will introduce yourself. You'll introduce yourself, Zamina.
Okay, good evening, everyone. First of all, my sincere apologies on what happened last week. But it was just one of those things that I could not do anything about. And the one time that I actually depended on my internet was the one time it let me down. But anyway, life has its ups and downs. And so I'm going to talk about how my life has been. As you all know, dyslexia has got a lot of parts to it. And I would like to encourage a little bit of interaction as well if there are any questions or if there's something that's not clear. I hope I'm being heard right now.
Yes, Zamina, you're very clear.
Okay. Uh, so the reason that I decided to talk about dyslexia don't stop me instead of dyslexia has been a part of my life. If you can see, there's this very famous movie called Dumb and Dumber. So these were questions that I used to ask myself as a 7-year-old and wonder challenges when it comes to topic A, for example. Um, we now know that dyslexia is a challenge in reading and sometimes comprehending information. For me, it was mostly dyscalculia, but definitely I was categorized as one of the slow learners in class. So my questions would always be, why me? Why does it always have to be me? Why do I always have to be in that category where the teacher is like, oh, it's her again? So if you see, or four different equations, but it's actually two. But with a mind like mine, to be honest, this is what I would be able to see. Now, 7 plus 9, I would finally get it into my brain. And then when you ask me 9 plus 7, my mind would be all over scrambled. But it is the same thing. If you go see the 7 plus 9 and 9 plus 7, it's the same thing. But to a mind like mine, it would be, oh my God, okay, now what is this? What's happening here? So I'm going to, because this is something that I would like to share about the challenges that I've experienced. This is one element that was also a problem. So it wasn't just the math. To me, it was also comprehension of understanding clocks. So if you brought a clock to me, I think I started understanding how to read and the rest of my friends would make fun of me and I'd not be able to read the clock. So to me, it was just a whole new level of confusion. Okay. Um, as you can see, to me, this looks right, by the way. This was another challenge that I used to have, left and right. To date, the way I cope with this is by wearing a watch. So this is how my brain interprets the right and left. If you can see this does not look correct. Or does it look correct to some people? So to me, my mind interprets this as right and left. So all of these, the inability to be able to calculate properly, the inability to sometimes get confusions with letters, the timing, the left and right. Occasionally, I would be asked.
Good evening. Apologies. I think we lost Zamina. Um, Zamina, you back? So sorry, members. I think we lost Zamina once again. I'm trying to contact her again. Just apologies for that interruption. Zamina? Unfortunately, members, Zamina has got issues with internet. Where was I heard?
Okay, sorry about that. I'm just
It's
going
okay,
to,
Zamina, welcome.
I'll just share the page again.
Crispin, if you can make Zamina host, because I also lost network at some point and I see Crispin is the host. Crispin, please. I think when the host drops out, the host rights are shifted to another person.
Oh,
Crispin
okay.
Mfugale, if you can make Zamina host, I'll appreciate. Yeah, Zamina, your host now. You can start again.
Okay. Okay, we go back to the questions and the challenges. Is this okay? So, the last two topics that I was talking about was why are the older siblings faster in grasping? So there was always this comparison because I'm the second born. There was always a question of, the previous teachers always saying that, your first child was able to perform so much better and, he's so good. And your last daughter is also like that. What's wrong with this one in particular? And so all of these would really, they were not uplifting comments. They would be very downgrading and, back to the embarrassment, back to self-doubting, back to not knowing what you're doing, back to always wondering what is wrong with me. So some of the comments that would be given to me would be open your mind. And so I actually sat and thought, what does this mean, opening your mind? How can someone tell you to open your mind? Okay, this is the maximum, and I'm really, really trying my best because my nature was competitive generally. And to me, when I would see and I would try my best and I would do everything possible to be able to just get one skill. Then one fine day, when I reached the seventh grade, I got an award for best student. This was because I'm going to share what was the things that had helped me. But this helped to open my brain. And it turns out that encouragement, finding out positive reinforcements, family support, understanding, all of these really helped. And then the world turned topsy-turvy again. And we moved from Arusha to Dar es Salaam. Now, this was in secondary school. Now, this was already understood that this child in particular has a form of learning difficulty. Now, imagine having a learning difficulty and understanding that, this one has to move to Dar. There was a lot of challenges that we had to overcome. The world was now faster. The world was a bit more different. We were surrounded by a lot of family this time. There was a lot of events that were happening. So there was a lot that I needed to cope up with. Then we moved into your the school that I was going to change the curriculum from Nectar to Cambridge. And we were the first, because we were the first batch, they decided to compress 2 years into one. That was a nightmare. As you can see the picture here, the ears have smoke coming out of them. That probably was my brain at that point of time. I think if I was able to imagine it, there'd probably be smoke coming out of my ears. So, coping with all that, too many subjects, too little time. There's this family events that you need to attend to. Someone is comparing you. And unfortunately, fortunately for me, I had one of my cousins in the same grade as me. And, we would study together and we would have like my strengths and his strengths, and my weaknesses and his weaknesses would turn into one. And we would find, we finally had a study group, and that was something that had really, really helped me. And he would always sit down when it came to the math part. He would be like, ah, you're so frustrating. Why don't you just get this? Look, put this, edit with this, put this formula in here, and you'll be able to get the answer. Why is this so hard on you? The poor thing really, really tried his best. So the coping method for me at that point of time was because there were some things that I would not be able to understand. What was the thing? Put everything into the brain. As you can see the image, cram for the exam. Now, there was a strength that I had where I'd be able to look at pictures and be able to understand and remember them exactly, detail by detail. And to date, that has been a strength for me. Remembering things is a strength for me. So obviously, that was the method that I'd used to be able to put the information into my head. Fortunately, I passed. And I would not say that I passed with flying colors. This was back in O levels. I passed and managed to get into AS and A2, which is now called Form 5 and Form 6, which is the equivalent. So now the journey is, to me, there was a personal touch of why I wanted to become a physiotherapist. And, to get into my medical, background, I needed to get a certain type of grade, number one. Number two, I needed to be able to study in such a way to be able to get a good university. So I did my best. When I got the chance to drop the math element, I did. And I ended up taking biology, chemistry, and physics. These were the three necessary um, topics or sciences that I needed to be able to become a physiotherapist. And so it came to the physics again, and I needed to have that extra help. I needed to understand, I needed to cram, I needed to draw, I needed positive reinforcement, I needed encouragement, I needed to do things 5 times versus someone understanding it once. With the biology and the chemistry, it was never difficult for me. When it came to the physics, because that was a requirement and I needed to dream and get into that place, these were a few things that I'd used to be able to compensate. And so I went to university. I finally came across dyslexia during my first year, and I was tested for it, and I was told that yes, you had and you still have a learning difficulty. All of these form under the learning categories. There's the dyslexia part, there's the comprehension part, there's the dyscalculia part. These are all understood. I now understand that these all have their own categories. And so using that, what I would do to be able to understand my topics better were number one, looking at images. And the best part about my job is when I look at the muscles, I can actually imagine the world out there. And that was number one. Number two, the ability to be able to remember things. Number three, we would form this focus group studies, and I would always be the teacher for that. To me, that was not me learning, but it was my way of learning. So I found my ways. And this helped me understand my topics, number one, understanding that I have a difficulty and its challenges, but now how to cope with those. So I finally finished my university and I got an honorary degree and I started working. I've now been working for 10 years and now I wanted to achieve my dream and I happened to open my own clinic. So I'm now in two locations in Arusha. Unfortunately, I've not been able to open in Dar es Salaam yet. But I have two clinics in Arusha, one at Jemsa and one at Hayat. So that's where I am. So I'll talk about that later. But what I'm currently facing, the current challenges that I'm having. So the first one, I still have a problem with my left and right. I'm going to share a funny story whereby my husband always asks me about directions, and I always tell him, if you go to town, then you turn towards the left. He now knows that this is a problem for me, and he asks me, are you sure? Is it a left or a right? And I have to think. I have to really go back, imagine that road, and think, okay, left is this side, right is this side. This is where it is. Second one is maps. If you gave me a map and you told me this, can you show me exactly where I'm heading towards? I'd not be able to tell you. And so what I do as a compensation, for example, if I have to use Google Maps, I listen to the directions and see at the arrow. If it tells you a left, it doesn't help me. I have to look at the arrow. And comprehension of calculations. For example, if you tell me something is 1 meter, to me, it doesn't work. I have to see what 1 meter looks like to be able to understand. I don't know whether I'm able to express how difficult some of these things are. Sometimes it would be the distance, sometimes it would be like whether it's centimeters or meters or millimeters. Usually, to some people, when you tell them, okay, this one's 1 foot or 2 feet, they'd easily be able to comprehend. But if you ask me that, you're messing with my mind. I'd have to actually see, okay, this is what 1 foot looks like. This is a comparison. So these are other things that had helped me. One thing that I'm really, really appreciative about is that my mother, who happened to be a teacher, really took her time, from trying her best. She gave all the love. She gave all the patience that she had. So it was love and patience that got me to where I am. Yes, there were days that were also challenging for her, and she would be like, "Oh my God, why?" But she did her best. And so this is my support system. This is my family, and this is what has helped me so far to cope to where I am. And I'm going to share this with you. Life can be difficult. This is one of the challenges that I still do have. It's better as you grow up. You understand yourself better. You understand how to learn things. You understand how to cope with things. But it's not every day that's the same. And so I happened to open my clinic that's called Revive Rehabilitation. The reason that I called it Revive is because every time life brings us back, we need to be brought to where we need to go. And that's the reason I named it Revive. The reason I decided to term it rehab and not physiotherapy is because one day it is my dream to open a place whereby when you step into that area, you leave from there feeling good. Whether it's the mental aspect or it's the physical element, and maybe even the spiritual element, all of these to connect, to be able to bring us back to reliving. So I'm going to stop here and accept if there are any questions or any comments. I'm ready to take them.
Members, you're welcome to ask any question that you might have to Zamina. Zamina, before we welcome questions, we are grateful to have you be so open and share about your situation, because many people still cannot come out and say, yes, I'm having this challenge. You're a very strong woman. You've decided to share your story with us, and we do not take this for granted. Thank you so much for being part of Dyslexia Tanzania. Members, Zamina is one of our board members. We are very lucky to have Zamina in our board because she's been with us ever since. I don't know, Zamina, how you got to know about. Oh, I think I walked to your clinic at some
Yes,
point.
yes, I'd forgotten to share this. Just a short story behind this. Uh, Cowdens and her husband had come into my clinic to talk about inviting me to a program. And, they talked about, doing this event. I don't remember what event it was, to be honest. But then after she finished, I told her, can I share something with you? And I told her that this is the challenge that I had and I still have. And she stopped for a minute there, just looked at me and was like, oh my God, is this a blessing or what? So this is how I ended up uh, being a part of the team.
Yeah, Zamina, I remember we were planning our first event when we were doing an inauguration for Dyslexia Tanzania. And we
Yes.
were looking for people, we were inviting people, and I do not know how I walked into your clinic and I decided to invite you. I didn't know Zamina had this challenge, this gift of dyslexia. So when inviting her, and Zamina is like, you know what? I'm dyslexic. I have this challenge. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't expect this. But always when we share about dyslexia, we find people that are dyslexic so many times. We haven't left a meeting when we talk about dyslexia, we do not find people owning up saying, I'm dyslexic, my son, my daughter, my cousin. We always meet this and always remember it's 1 out of 5 people have this gift of dyslexia. So it's not something that is rare. people just don't own up and speak about it like Zamina. So Zamina has been with us ever since the first year, 2023, when we had a big meeting in October when we launched it, and she was one of the speakers. So Zamina, you're very special to Dyslexia Tanzania. Let me just give a chance to the people. I thought I should just say that before people could ask questions. And actually, Zamina, many things you're talking about, also my son goes through the same. My son has a sequence problem. He's turning 11 years old, 11 years in June, but everything in the past is just yesterday. Even last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago is yesterday for him. And anything in the future, even next year, next month will just be tomorrow. So he knows two times. It's either something is either yesterday or it's tomorrow. And also, so he has that sequencing problem. Of course, dyscalculia, like you explained, he goes through challenges about his arithmetics. So when you were speaking, I'm like, oh, Zamina, you have similarities between yourself and my son. But I see the success you have in your clinic, and I hear so many clients talk about you as the best therapist in Arusha. I see hope for my son as well. And you said about Ayat in Arusha. I think, did you move out of Mega Care, Zamina?
Yes, I've moved out of Mega Care, and so this is a bit more easier for a lot of my clients to access. And that's why Gemsa and Hayat are so close to each other. So it's easy to
Okay,
move around for me.
that's good to know. That's good to know. I'll visit you in your new clinic and even send you more clients. Welcome, members, to ask questions. Zamina is a very open-minded person. She's not those people who think this is a bad omen, this is witchcraft, or this is something to be ashamed of. You see, she's been open about her situation, and I think she's just a very successful woman. Welcome to ask any question. I see something on the chat. So inspiring. Thank you. This is from Fatma. Isaac says, okay. Can we have the recording after this? Yes, you can. Anyone in our meeting who would like to ask a question or contribute something, you're welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Vincent.
Now, Zamina, thank you for sharing your experience. This is very encouraging. Now, I just have not a question, but something just to ask further. When you were
Yes.
in the government school, when was this condition identified as you having it? And when you went to international school, because I see that you have had two experiences from the government and from the international setup. How was the experience of the teachers when you told them, or how did they identify? Did you give them a report that recent I have been diagnosed, or your parents gave them the report that you have been diagnosed by this condition? And when they knew it, what did they do? I think if you can get the two scenarios of how the teachers approached your condition, it might be beneficial for any teacher who is in the forum.
Okay, so it was not it was not from a government school to an international school. When I moved from Arusha to Dar es Salaam, that was a big move for us. And it was an international, it was a private school, but they were moving from the NECTA-based system to Cambridge. Now, because they've got two types of curriculums, they decided to compress because they had two batches. They had the May-June batch and the October-November batch. Now, from that coping, it turned into 2 years, into almost 1.5 year. So that was number one. It was not two different forms of school. It was a private school, but they had decided to change their curriculum from NECTA to Cambridge. So that was one. Number two, you had talked about the teacher's understanding. So remember back then, all those titles that I'd gotten, your child is slow, your child cannot cope, your child needs to do this, your child needs to do that. Why is your child performing, slower than the rest of the siblings? Remember that they thought that something was wrong with me. But my mother, being a teacher, understood that something is different about my child. Not in a bad way. She can cope with other things, but when it comes to one particular topic or one particular way of studying, this is not the way she understands. And so she would always talk to the teachers. Then, back then, they didn't know, they didn't have titles for this. I got diagnosed when I went to university. It was just like, okay, this particular child is slow, or this particular child has a difficulty in this. So it was my mother trying to explain to them and express to them that this child of mine, it's not like she's got poor performance. Her way of learning is different. The topic that bothers her is this. So the teachers would try and give me this special attention. And sometimes it would get to that level where, the other students would look at me and they'd be like, why is the teacher giving you an extra attention just when it comes to math? The rest of the subjects you are okay. I mean, I do appreciate them taking that extra effort. And I can tell you this, that extra effort that the teachers took to those particular weaknesses of mine is what helped me. They kept their rooms open for me. They kept their doors open for me. I wouldn't say this for all the teachers. And, with certain types of teachers who would threaten you and tell you, oh, you know what? You're dumb, you're this, you're that. They would never be approachable. And there were certain teachers that felt like home. I'd be able to go in and tell them, look, you taught the class today, but I can promise you, I don't understand one thing in here. Please look for ways to make me understand. And I would go home and my mother would always encourage me to talk to my teachers, tell them, please, help me. So it was not a one thing that was done. It was a two-way traffic, I can say. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah. It's good.
Zamina, to ride on that. Dr. Vincent, are you done?
I'm here. I'm here.
Zamina, you had a chance to go through the two curriculums, the Nectar and the Cambridge. Which curriculum would you say was more friendly to your studies?
So, in all honesty, Cambridge was a better system because, they would divide their topics into different parts. The books that we used to get were a bit more, the use of pictures. Sometimes we would have audio classes. So later on, I found out that there are three ways of learning. There's the visual, there's the audio, and there's the kinetic form, the use of touch and feel. And to me, Cambridge gave me a better opportunity in terms of understanding. The Nectar system was just the worst for me. It was all about cramming, cramming, cramming.
Okay, Zamina, I have questions from the chat. Parents in the session, you can hear, you've seen that Cambridge is a more friendly system. And I believe that because it gives more options and more exposure to the children. And as a parent of a child with dyslexia, I believe that you need to give as many options as possible, all the ways of learning, which might not be there in the other system. So, Zamina, there's a question here. There's one person here saying, thank you for the insights. I'm Beatrice Vukuta from Kenya. I'm encouraged. Thank you so much, Beatrice. Another one is saying, good evening, house. I'm happy to be here. My question is, if a child of 12 years cannot read and he forgets things easily, what can I do to help?
Okay.
Zamina, what would you say?
So, in the perspective of the inability to read, you see, this is why I said there are different forms of learning nowadays. And as much as science has advanced, science in collaboration with education has been able to bring about a lot of techniques. And so I talked about the visual methods, I talked about the audio methods, and I talked about the kinetic methods. So if your child is not able to read, then they can always use vision. There's always images to look at. There's always you being able to read to the child. And obviously you need to sit down with the teacher. And I'm believing and I see Cowdens is doing an amazing job to try and educate and somehow integrate with the government to be able to help people like myself. And I believe that one day we'll be able to come to a solution whereby children are able to do exams based on the ability of the mind and not just the ability to read and cram. So there are definitely other methods, and I think Cowdens would be able to guide on how she has been able to cope with her son as well. But this is the best that I can answer. In regards to forgetting things, you see, forgetting shows the parts of your brain that it doesn't catch something. For you to be able to remember and store it into your long-term memory, your mind needs to catch. Now, you can use colors, you can use sounds, you can use things that can attract your child. And again, remember that every child is different. For certain children, hearing certain sounds sticks that to the memory. For certain children, it's certain things that you look at. For certain children, it's some things that you touch to be able to remember. So these are all things that you would need to sit with a specialized tutor to be able to identify what works best for your child. I'm hoping I've been able to answer that.
Yes, and Dr. Vincent, do you want to say something? Because Dr. Vincent is a specialized person. If you're still in our midst, Dr. Vincent, I would love to hear something, maybe if you have something to add.
Well, I just from the experience that she has talked about, because last week we really delved into a lot of issues about the gaps that are there. But my concern is, and I know some of the parents in the forum would be asking the same, or will be feeling the same, that, well, Cambridge is good or international setup is good because it gives the audacity of the students, or makes the students to be autonomy in terms of whatever they do, in terms of whatever they learn, and they become whom they are. I mean, they explore the world. Now, for those parents who cannot afford that kind of education, it brings now the issue of what next for my child if my child cannot go to Cambridge. So there comes the scenarios which Zamina has just put across, that we need to devise different ways of approaches towards teaching the students, whether they are in government schools, whether they're in using different curriculums, whether they're using international curriculums. It is all our responsibility to have a collective kind of approach towards assisting students or children who have been diagnosed by this. That starts by accommodating all of them in terms of maybe what we give them to go and do at home, what we expect them to produce as part of their work, in as far as they are typically developing peers are concerned, because you can't force, like, for instance, if I use you, I mean, please at least allow me to use you,
Yes,
that
please go
you
ahead.
told us that you had a dyslexic kind of problem. But now, if the teachers could force you now to calculate issues of Pythagoras that time when the condition was now so much for you, it couldn't be easy. So you see, they came up with the modalities of learning: kinesthetic, visual, hearing. We use all senses. That is, you can touch, you can see, you can feel, you can hear. If it is YouTube videos which are related to that, so that it can build in the short-term memory and further prolonged into the long-term memory by rehearsals, by revisions, by seeing these things, by touching them, by modeling and so forth. So, it calls for a kind of different approach. It's a new paradigm shift that we can use. We as parents, as professionals, as maybe teachers in the field, general education teachers, SEN teachers, occupational therapists, it's a new paradigm shift. What we have heard from Zamina is very encouraging, that she has made it until that level and she has opened the clinics and so forth. So it is also upon us that to know that disability actually, or per se, is not inability. We can still make it in life in as far as we have these conditions and so forth. Myself, personally, I can talk of a mild kind of autism, which I need my things to be done in a sequence. So if they're not done in a sequence, then it brings an issue to me. But you see, I've reached that level where I've reached with those kind of issues and so forth, but I could still be where I wanted to be. So it should not be that we see the disability more than the ability in a person. Because if this case could be now that we see the disability or the dyslexic part in Zamina, and teachers say, okay, this student is dyslexic, let me put him aside, I'll teach him later, or I'll teach her later. She couldn't make it. The same applies to all those conditions that we have in life, that if a child is cerebral palsy, if a child is autistic, if a child has communication difficulties, we need to see the person first. We place this in bracket ability behind. Let's see the person, what the person can do, what the person can produce to us, what the person feels about his or her own environment in as far as learning is concerned. So if we change our paradigms, if we change our perspective of looking at disability, I think we are going to be in a better place. We are going to be competing with the developed countries because they view a person first, then the disability comes second. So if we can put it on that context now, all the areas, be it school, be it employment, because if a guy, for instance, who is having a hearing impairment goes for a job interview, and this one I've witnessed this, goes for a job interview somewhere, he's not getting the position because the panel members who are also interviewing the person might not even have an interpreter because they had an afterthought that in this interview, we will not consider any person who cannot hear, a deaf person. Or in this interview, we won't consider any person who is dyslexic, who is having dyscalculia. So in that capacity, we are only focused on coming up with the best people that we see. So in the interviews, in the panels, in the hospitals, in churches, we need to change. We need to bring the inclusivity of all our people, of all the persons that we believe or have been diagnosed by these conditions. And we see the person first. We put this in bracket, ability behind the person, and we are going to make it as a society. Without that, then we still have a milestone to reach where we want to reach in as far as different sectors are concerned, education being one of them. So I can say that for now, Claudence. In any case, I have something to put across, then I can just open the mic. Thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent. I can see a comment from Fatma Juma to you. Totally agree, Dr. Vincent. We need to create a community which supports neurodivergent children. Special classes and therapy is very expensive, and we need to change the trend to where we empower parents to work on their children with full support. That's for you. Thank you so much, Fatma. That's a very good comment. I see someone else here. Terry is saying, thank you, Zamina, for the presentation. It was very insightful. I would really love to hear more from you in the future. He says you were about to share the reason you chose to study medicine, but I'm not sure I heard it. So, Zamina, why did you choose to study what you studied, medicine and the physiotherapy? Why?
Okay, so for me it was a more personal reason, and the reason being that when I was in Form 4, which we would categorize, I think, as grade 11, I think 10 or 11, my mother was diagnosed with some rare form of arthritis back then. It was not understood, and she had to be taken all the way to India to be able to diagnose what was going on. And when she came back, she was, the position that she left in was, I thought I'd lost my mother. But when she came back, she was completely okay, like nothing had gone, nothing had happened. And all I saw that and I was like, what happened? How did you come back to this? Like, how did you come back to the original mother, the strong mother that I saw? Because for me, my mother is my superhero. And when I saw her like that, She said, yes, this was a physiotherapist that had helped me. She had some form of exercises that had helped her. Yes, the medication was there that had, brought her back, but it was the exercises that actually rejuvenated her and brought her back to the original form of that superhero that I saw. And that's also one of the reasons that I named my clinic Revive, because my mother was revived. So this was the reason I got into medicine. It pushed me, and I wanted to help my mother. So I hope that answers your question,
Wow.
Terry.
Yeah, thank you, Zamina. So Kanan is asking Zamina, is there any glasses which help a dyslexic person? Glasses.
I'm not too sure about if I understand the question. Maybe you can
Like
help me.
Kanan, would you explain? I understood that glasses maybe to help someone read, but Kanan, because you're here, could you explain further what you mean? Kanan? You could also type, but I think she means the glasses like for the eyes. Are there any glasses which can help a dyslexic person? But Kanan, could you elaborate more if I understood you well?
Eyeglasses.
Eyeglasses. Yeah.
I'm not too sure if I can. Maybe if it is in the form of the inability to read, is that what you're trying to express? I see Phyllis says,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Kanan means inability to read, something that can help someone to read.
So you see, it's not really the inability to read because this person cannot see, but it is about comprehension of the words into the brain. So for example, I'm reading these words. Let's say, hello, please keep on supporting our initiatives. I'm probably trying to understand this, but the part of the brain that expresses and understands what you see and capturing it into the interpretation part, there's no or there's poor connection, or there's altered forms of letters. But there's no glasses that would be able to correct it, if I can answer that as a question.
Thank you, Zamina. I totally agree with you. And Phyllis has also added that dyslexia is not a visual problem. So eyeglasses cannot help. So it's nothing to do with the sight of the person. So Kanan, I hope you've been answered. And thank you, Kanan. You've been answered there. Unless the person has a problem with visuals, dyslexia is how the brain interprets information. That's an addition to your question, Kanan, that not unless there's a vision problem, then you need glasses. But if it's not a vision problem, then definitely you will not get any help from glasses. So thank you. We have a few more minutes left. So I'm going to announce something very exciting, three. And we've now come to a place where we've even introduced this online school. We create awareness through many ways. This is one of them. And we do teachers workshops and parents workshops and all this, just to create awareness and tell people that like Dr. Vincent, I would like to borrow from Dr. Vincent, that let's look at a person before you look at the disability. In our community, many people look at the disability before they look at the person. That this is not put into brackets. So we are here on a mission to create awareness about these challenges of dyslexia, dyscalculia, like the challenges Zamina went through. Imagine if Zamina didn't have support from the community, if there were no teachers who supported Zamina, if there was no supporting parent, it means we would not be having Zamina with all the success she has with a very good physiotherapy clinics. So we are welcoming everyone on this platform to support our initiatives. We are doing a run, a dyslexia awareness run in October 5th. Please, you're welcome to share with your friends. You're welcome to run with us. You're welcome to pay for a ticket for a person who's not able to afford. So, and we really appreciate your support. We cannot do this on our own. You see, people like Zamin have been supporting this initiative ever since we started. So thank you so much for your continued support. We continue to encourage you to join us on our platforms. Anybody who is on the call tonight, we have a dyslexia support group where we share lots of information throughout. This session only comes once a week, but we have a lot of information we share on our platforms, on our WhatsApp channel, and on our WhatsApp group. We also have our group for the run. Welcome to join us. Let me welcome any other person who has something to say before we call it a night. Anybody with a comment, with a question?
I'll just be sharing a paper that I wrote about the social model of disability. And it's a good paper that has been recognized internationally. It's one of my papers that I've written. So please, I just encourage you guys to just take time and try to read where we are moving from, because we are moving from the medical perspective towards the social model. We are moving from a situation where disability is seen as a disease to a place where disability is seen as a social context, from the medical approach towards a social context and the moral aspect of it. So that paper is containing a lot of articles in it, a lot of quotes from Davis, one of the very, very proponents of the social model of disability studies. It's an eye-opener towards how we view cases that are termed as disability. So I'll just share it out maybe in the group, and then maybe people who will have time can just access it and read it, because it's the only way that you can find information, because they say that if you want to hide information, put it in writing. People don't like reading, and they miss a lot of information. So please just try and read. I'll be posting some of the books that we use this side. There are quite millions of books that I'll be posting in the group. Also, they can open up some parents and see how they can support their children at home with various kind of cases that they undergo and so forth. So maybe Claudence can be reminding me about the books. I can be sharing them out to the group and see how they can assist the people. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent. For your information, members, also we are very lucky as a board, Dyslexia Tanzania board. Dr. Vincent is a member of our board and he's been very, very supportive, as you can all know and agree with me. So Dr. Vincent, we value your support. Thank you so much. But I wanted to have a different opinion, Dr. Vincent, now that we are talking about dyslexia and different ways of learning. Instead of us reading on our own, why don't we give you a session to share your paper so that those who can read, those who like to hear can hear it from the horse's mouth? Maybe we can
Different
talk
forms of
behind the
learning,
tent.
right?
Yes,
I like that.
Dr. Vincent. Dr. Vincent would like
Okay,
to schedule you for a future session,
so,
please.
well, I did a session on autism and dyslexia. Those who missed, they missed a very good part. But I will check my schedule because I'm a bit tied up with some kind of university issues. But there is no problem. I will give you a session when I'll be free, because I presented this paper in the ICANN conference. So I think I can tell Claudence when I'll be available, most probably in June, not now because I'm a bit tied up. But in June, I can make a short presentation on how the paper runs, and then I will share the paper upon presenting it. I think that's a good idea. So I won't give you the
Thank
gist
you
of
so much,
it,
Dr. Vincent.
but just wait
Yeah,
until you present the full paper.
that's fine. Thank you, Dr. Vincent, for your
Yeah.
time. So I
Thank you too.
see, Phyllis, you have a hand. We will check on the schedule, Dr. Vincent. Actually, we are not available for this month. We have scheduled facilitators this month, so it's fine.
Okay.
We can do June.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you so much. Phyllis, you're welcome. Phyllis, I saw your hand up.
She's muted.
Phyllis,
She's
I don't know.
muted.
I think you lost.
She's muted.
Yeah, Phyllis.
Unmute.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Phyllis.
You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, how are you, everyone? Sorry, I keep forgetting about it until when I sit down to what, and then I remember this conversation that is very amazing that I don't ever want to miss. My name is Phyllis from Kenya and the founder of Dyslexia Organization Kenya. I want Cordence, maybe you can allow me to talk about our dyslexia certificate course for teachers.
Phyllis,
Is it okay?
yes, how long do you need? Because our time is up. Maybe we can schedule you for a talk. Our time is up. If it's a short one for 2 minutes, fine. For 2, 3, 5 minutes, fine. But if it's a long one,
No. It's
I would
just
prefer
very simple. I just want to
Okay,
let
go
people
ahead.
know that
Go ahead.
we have a dyslexia course, partial course that is partnered with Mount Kenya University. So if you are a teacher here and you'd want to be trained and certificated, you can join us. We already have the first cohort. The second cohort will be starting in July. So for more information, I'll share in the group. If you really want, you can talk to Cordence. You let me know how to join this certificate course. Just that. Thank you, Cordence.
Phyllis, thank you so much. Members, Phyllis is part of us in the dyslexia support group. So I'm sure we can have this conversation more and more. Phyllis, you can send it to the support group, and then I can write on your comment and say that this is the course you talked about on Dyslexia Online School. Members, I highly encourage. Part of the people who have made me know a lot of information about dyslexia is Dyslexia Kenya. We date back in 2021 when I discovered my son's dyslexia, and I was like, where do I go? What do I do with this new vocabulary? So when I started my WhatsApp group, which is existing until now, I quickly drafted a message and said in my networks and said, please, if anyone has ever heard about dyslexia, if you know anything, if you have dyslexia, join my support group. And lucky enough, Dyslexia Organization Kenya, Phyllis in particular, plus the co-founder, who is the sister, a twin sister called Nancy, a special education teacher, joined my platform. Ever since 2021, Phyllis has been posting courses and webinars, and we've been learning. I have learned a lot. So we are grateful for such networks, and we support each other like that in this learning, and we believe that learning is lifelong. So Phyllis, feel free to send the course to our dyslexia support group because you're a member in the group, and we are happy to join and get more knowledge. Thank you so much. Terry is
Thank you.
asking one question. Welcome. Terry is asking Zamina, question to Zamina and Dr. Vincent. I'm starting to think it might not be a good idea to tell a child under 10 about their disability. What do you think? When and how should one be explained? Good question from Terry. And this is to Zamina and Vincent. Karibu.
So, from my point of view, I feel as a child, suffering and going through that journey, I think if there was a name that I had gotten for what I was going through. And, somebody would have come to explain this to me and told me, you know what? This is the reason that you're going through A, B, and C. This is how you can cope with this. I think it would have opened a lot more faster doors for me. So remember that this is something that has come up recently in Tanzania. Back then, we never used to understand even what a learning difficulty is. People used to say a lot of bad things, and I wouldn't categorize it as a disability to a child because, the word disability still has a lot of taboo, or maybe I would say some negativity behind it.
Negative connotation.
Yeah. But I would consider, somehow educating my child, or, as a child, being educated to a certain level, to the ability of a 10-year-old.
Well, I can.
So for you,
Yeah,
Zamna,
Zamina is right. And again, to Terry, it also depends with the kind of condition that your child or the child has. Because there are some conditions that you might not be in a position to tell the child. For instance, if a child has been diagnosed by autism, it won't be easy for the child to understand that he has autism because it is a barrier towards communication, towards socialization, and so forth. The child will just be seeing him or her being taken to therapeutic kind of intervention. But conditions which the child can understand why things are happening and how they are happening, like for instance, dyslexic, or high functioning autism. There are people who normally are autistic but high functioning. The child can also be made aware because a situation will reach where we are developing support programs for these children. Their views matter because they normally say that nothing for us without us. That is a phrase that came from international conventions, that you can't design a program for a child who has been diagnosed without their consent or without their input. That, okay, fine, I'm designing an individualized education plan for you, or I'm designing a treatment plan for you. These are the goals that I've measured, or I'm trying to create SMART goals for you. But this is the first goal. What do you think about this goal? The child will tell you. Some of the children can argue out and tell you, oh, this is too much for me. Why can't you give me? You have set it at 75%. I want it at 55%. Why can't I start by 55%? They can have a point of argument in as far as their goals are concerned. Again, what also binds us per se within the continent, because I've been in several countries, some of the countries, they don't hide these conditions to children. They make them aware at an early age so that now they can realize, so that the society can also be part and parcel towards managing these conditions, because developed countries could not reach where they are if these conditions could be hidden from the people who have been diagnosed. How could they be able to make the buses that are very friendly to people who are using wheelchairs? How could they be making the roads to say, okay, fine, this path is only meant for persons who are on wheelchair? If you go to supermarkets now, some in developed countries, there's a place, I'm sorry to say, I went where I was here last week, and I didn't read some of the labels. So I was queuing in a place where it's only for people who are what? Having impairment, having what? So somebody came and told me, okay, fine, this place is, you see, they are coming up with different things because of what? Awareness. So if we hide these conditions, then the awareness will not reach the people that we need. I think it's very important to put across, whether it is a child, whether it is a person who's taking care of the child, to know these conditions exist within the society. If your child knows, then the friend of your child will know. Then the other friend of your friend's child will know. So we will be creating an awareness in one way or the other. But if we put it just on us, stigmatization will start. Labeling will start. This one cannot do this. Labeling. But if we create awareness and we explain to them, it is happening because of this. You are going for therapies because of this. These therapies are going to assist you. The impact of this is going to be this. We are going to change this goal, so that we make the child also being involved in the planning and the support programs. So it can be in one way or the other. Whether the condition is friendly to the child to be told, some conditions like spinal bifida, the child cannot communicate, so he can't be told that this is the condition that you're undergoing and so forth.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Vincent. I've learned from you something this evening as well, because I'm also here trying to think, how will I start telling my child a lot of things about the condition he's going through. So thank you so much. There's one last question. At what age would you know that a child has dyslexia? Masuma is asking, at what age would you know that a child has dyslexia? Anyone wants to take this one? Briefly, because it's 9:10 already.
I can briefly comment.
Yes,
I
yes,
can
please.
just briefly comment that it all depends. It all depends with how the child adapts to the learning environment. Because sometimes dyslexic, as I said the previous week, it can be brought as a result of our learning environment. How we teach these children, how we try to impact knowledge to them can bring, and then we suspect that this child is dyslexic. But if the child is taken from another learning environment, this child performs well. So the dyslexic was brought as a result of what? The teaching pedagogy that the teacher was using. So we can't determine actually the exact age. Like, for instance, some cases which people are saying at 3 years, if the child is not developing on this kind of levels, then you can suspect that this child has maybe autism, or this child has ADHD, because at age 6 is having what you call the DSMs and so forth. But dyslexic is a bit tricky, because we look at maybe the performance in as far as a specific subject is concerned, because now the case of Zamina, allow me to use you, dyscalculia, mathematics, and some things of calculation and so forth. So that's a specific area. What about a child who can articulate his ideas well, but cannot put his ideas or thoughts in written? Dysgraphia. Where can it, so, there are specific cases that we have within the ambulance. That's why we are saying somebody can have dysgraphia, not being able to put the thought in written well, at an age of 14. That is when he's realized, oh, you are punishing this boy to write compositions and inches, and yet this boy could not even be in a position to bring the thoughts in written. Why couldn't he just present them orally? So we are trying to accommodate this child towards the assessment process. So the age also varies. And also we look at so many factors, as I have mentioned. Environmental conditions can come in. The pedagogy that we are using can come in. The type of schools can come in where our children are learning and so forth. The home environment, genetics come in, because sometimes you can have hereditary factors coming in and so forth. So there's so many things that we can put across, and some we can hold constant, like genetics, we can hold it constant. We can't change. It's there permanently. But the environment, we can flex, we can change it. We can say, okay, fine. If this teacher is the one who's teaching this child, why can I change and have this child being taught by teacher B? We look at the pedagogy, if it is going to make a change in as far as the performance is concerned. So it's not easy to determine and say now at age 5, if the child is not performing well, then this child is dyslexic. We might be wrong in one way or the other.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Vincent. And that brings us to the end of our lesson. You've really answered it well. Thank you so much. I read a book by a dyslexic person who is a doctor, and he says that if you have a master teacher, your life is much easier. So the role of a teacher cannot be ignored. That's why, Dr. Vincent, when you say about the learning environment, the method of teaching, the method of instruction, really, they make a difference. So thank you so much for joining. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. Have a good evening. Bye.